All right, welcome to this week's episode of DTV, Democratic Television. I'm your host, Brady Watson, and this week we've got a couple of candidates for Knox County Mayor, starting off with Bob Fischer and then Tyler Givens. Right now I'm speaking with Mr. Bob Fischer. So Bob, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about you and why you decided to run for Knox County Mayor?
Well, I'm 62 years old. I've moved to Knoxville as a child, 1968. Got on with UPS in 1977, and right out of high school, and have been gainfully employed there for 44 years. I retired in December of last year, 2021, about 2 weeks before Omicron really started moving into Knoxville. When that happened right after retirement, and it has been a very frustrating experience in Knoxville because we have had one of the worst COVID responses in the world, not in the nation, not in the state, in the world. 3 times worse than Cuba, 3 times worse than Guatemala, Moldova. I mean, come on, we're better than that. But anyway, I just saw my life as being a never-ending Groundhog Day of the hospitals being shut down 3 times a year, 3 weeks a year. And it's proven to be actually even more than that. It's like, man, I'm 62 years old, and the government's asked me to work my heart attack around their heart incompetence. You know, if something happens when these hospitals are shut down, it's not just COVID. We all pay. Yep. And so I went down, I picked up a petition, and I sort of charged ahead before thinking it out. But, I was retired. I just retired. I needed, I had time to do it anyway. So, and then, of course, I developed a platform. Mm-hmm. Once you do so, regardless of the motivation involved, one still, for doing something like this, has to understand that this is about government and what government should be and how it, what it is. Particularly in Knoxville, we've gotten away from the idea that local government is about local issues. And it's not partisan. Right. A pothole is not Republican or libertarian or conservative or liberal or progressive. A pothole is a pothole, and it costs the taxpayers whose tires are being torn up and whose wheels are going out of alignment more than they're probably paying for their county tax bill to begin with. That's my job. That's the mayor's job to fix that sort of stuff. But anyway, we've moved away from that in Knox County. I'd like to get us back to it. I'd kind of like to make government boring again.
That's an interesting tagline.
Well, we laugh about that. I've got a friend that uses that term, and but it is true. A local government should be boring. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have these sorts of issues popping up because that's why you elect county mayors, to keep hospitals open, to make sure that the schools are staffed and the sheriff's department is staffed. To serve the community, not to advance a political agenda. But
yeah, well, yeah. Well, that was, you kind of started on it, but leading my next question is kind of what's your policy platform, or what are your policy objectives if you were to be elected?
Well, it's in 3 things, really. First and foremost, once I got the petition turned in, I realized that I didn't actually know the exact purpose of the mayor because we haven't seen it. Really, the job of mayor in Knoxville hasn't really been done in about 25. It hasn't been done since the Schumpert administration. And our last tax adjustment was 1998. Of course, it's not the mayor's job to tax. What the mayor's job is, pretty much, is to present a budget once a year and to administrate what what happens as a result of that budget. There's some ancillary things. You appoint people to boards, and these are all important ancillary parts of this. Don't get me wrong, but pretty much it's that budget, making sure it works. And it just hasn't been done. And so, I printed off the charter and I printed off the budget and started studying. The three things beyond and I want to present an honest budget first and foremost. And I understand people aren't going to be happy with that. But you're not going to make everybody happy anyway. And I think, it's been so long since we've had fair and just government in Knoxville. And by that, I'm not talking about massive corruption. I'm talking about just negligence. It just hasn't been done. It's not that now Mayor Jacobs is driving a personal agenda, but before him, it hadn't been done in quite a while. But, the actual what he's doing at the job hasn't changed, which is nothing. The other two things I wanted to do, what I want to look at is we got to, as I said, I'm a COVID activist. And due to recent personal losses, I've struggled with how I can present this issue. And in memory of somebody that, we had lost, I wanted to present this as a positive thing rather than just the ongoing animosity and conflict that's been within this county. The well of public health has been poisoned by Mayor Jacobs. We, instead of working together as a community, as is traditional in Knoxville, we're at war. We're in a culture war. So I had to move beyond that. And I thought, well, the next stage was, what could we do to lower the viral load in the air in public buildings? And I thought, let's see, we got ESSER funds coming in. We've got another round of ESSER funds coming in. Let's upgrade the HVAC systems in the schools. And I mean, this is a transformative generational project. This isn't, call up John Coleman, just get a top of the line unit in and move on. A top line unit for a school is an expensive proposition, but the money's there from the Fed in the Build Back Better, and now is the time. If we have the money and we can do this, then let's do it. And as I began research, that's where I started. I had no idea whether this was a good idea or a bad idea. All I knew is we needed an idea that could bring people together rather than drive them apart. I can't find anything bad about this. Washington, D.C. recently did it. What happened? Their math scores went up. Their reading scores went up. Their teacher absences went down. Student absences went down. That sort of got to the heart of several issues, as a matter of fact. Got to how do we improve student performance? Well, we could bring in clean air for them to breathe. I mean, this is go figure. You give teachers and students clean air and the results improve. Who'd have thought? But that's the way it's looking. That's now, again, this is not by no means easy, or this is a transformative project. The other thing I'd like to do is we've got a lot of vacant land in our, the county owns a lot of vacant land that is industrial park land. And as I said, this job hasn't been done in well over 25 years. We have Eastbridge, which is sitting mostly vacant. We built Midway. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the Midway project, but it started under Rags, and we had to have it, but we couldn't grow. God forbid we don't get Midway, because then the whole economy of the town's going to collapse. There's not even a sign that says, future home of Bob's Burger Barn down there or anything. I mean, it's just empty. I want to put solar panels up on steel trusses, and we'll build underneath. If you got a warehouse or factory or a situation like that, and we'll try to do this differently. I'd like to put I'd actually like to make the HVAC and the solar farm job training sites as well. I'd like to work with unions and Knoxville College and get provide workers and interns in these, because we don't have enough workers to do this. And I'd like to see the steel workers and the IBEW, the electrical workers, down at Midway with an annex, and then just make this an ongoing project. We have build our labor pool. We're going to need them to build the ballpark, and try to get a jump up to where we can build the labor pool for a lot of these projects. With the solar canopies, of course, we put in batteries. I'd like to also go with an electrolysis machine, which will build hydrogen cells. Now, electrolysis manufacturing is done in pods, but they're about the size of a railroad boxcar. Doesn't take up a whole lot of space. But I want to put one in, get it online, see if it works. And then as demand, the way this thing is built, as demand increases, you just bring more pods in and you expand production that way rather than overinvest at the get-go. With that electricity, depending upon how things would go with TVA, KUB, the other energy partners, you got pretty good action. I mean, the high power lines go right over Midway. And East Bridge as well has pretty good feeds. And the first and foremost, I want to start turning over the county's service and emergency vehicles to electric and then charge them there. The recent, rather than have to buy fuel from an outside source. I mean, look, if you pay attention to what's going on in Knoxville and listen to, of course, county government's mostly about whining now. And the latest whine is, well, gas prices are going up. I mean, come on, really? You don't think gas prices were ever going to rise? You didn't figure this into your budget? It is your job. Where have you been the last 50 years? Gas prices rise. We don't have control over gas prices. But if we build the solar farm as we turn over our police cars, ambulances, the vehicles we need for our county to function, I want to do out of with electricity we produce. So I want to eliminate dependence on outside fuel costs within our fleet. And if I can get that done in 4 years, those three things, that would be the most significant administration since the Shumpert administration. I've got a couple pet issues on the side. I'm a big believer in community schools. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in junior golf and Little League baseball, junior athletics in particular. Yep. I'd like to bring back county championships for the kids. Yep. That's how you build community. And I just don't see little things like that being done either.
Right.
So that's my platform.
Well, that's great. Well, I think we're out of time. In the last couple seconds, do you want to give where can folks find you? I'm
on Facebook, Bob Fischer for Mayor, great. Fischer. I've had a lot of people tell me they left out the C, couldn't find it. But yeah, and that's basically all I've got. I'm unfunded independent right now. Well, I'm unfunded Democrat primary rather right now. And that's my outlet. Other than that, look for me at public meetings. I'm trying to get out every day. Yesterday I had 2. The day before there, I showed up at 1. And I'm going to try to continue doing that. Just, one-on-one to get my message out.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much, Bob. Appreciate it. All right. Well, now we have Mr. Tyler Givens here running for Knox County Mayor. And first question for you, Tyler, is just why did you decide to run for county mayor?
Yeah, thank you. And let me give you an answer. So the short version is I got laid off in January of last year, and I started doing a lot of activism work. I was working with a group that was doing eviction defense. So we were reaching out to folks who had court dates coming up. letting them know about the eviction moratorium. Also, I did some outreach with the homeless camps. I got to know some folks down there, took them food and water, helped them relocate when they had to move, stuff like that. And through that, I came into contact with a lot of our city county agencies, KCDC, CAC. And what I saw was the folks that are reaching out to those agencies for help, even if they were following the right process and making the right phone calls and sending the emails and checking the website and stuff, it just took a long time for them to get responses, or, they might be evicted or have their electricity cut off while they were waiting for approval of their funds. So I think that's kind of what led me to start looking into how can we fix that? Like, what's the position that can do something about that? And it really is the county mayor who appoints the leaders of the boards of these various organizations and has control of the budget, negotiation process to help determine where the funds are going to go. So through that work, I kind of saw that, there's this gap here, and the mayor seems like the right position to try to fix that. I looked at county commission and some other positions that are up for election too. And actually, I reached out to Matt Shears and asked if there was anybody running for mayor. He had a few people that were non-committal. I picked up a petition. So here we are. And it's been going pretty well so far. I mean, my big issues are stabilizing rent. So rents rose 30% in the city last year. That affects the whole county. We have a lot of programs where we give incentives to developers. I just think we need to reprioritize those programs, right? Instead of building sidewalks and giving pilot programs to luxury apartments, we need to focus on affordable housing with the programs we have that spend taxpayer dollars. Another one of my big issues is law enforcement accountability. Our sheriff's department currently does not have to wear body cameras. The police do, but the sheriffs don't. They don't have an always on camera policy, and they don't have a civilian oversight board. The city has park. The county doesn't have anything. I just think we should follow the Nashville model. They have always on body cameras. They have an independent civilian oversight board that's not under the mayor or the sheriff or anything. I don't think there's any reason why our sheriff's department can't emulate what the Metro Nashville Police Department is doing. I mean, obviously we're not a metro system, but the power is there, the ability is there. I think that's a reasonable modernizing step for our sheriff's department. And then another big issue for me is supporting teachers and workers. And a lot of that comes back to the stuff I was talking about with the CAC and reprioritizing that funding so that our social services are fully staffed and able to help the people that need help so that they can keep their utilities on, stay in their homes, keep their jobs, and stay productive workers. Folks don't want to get evicted. They want to stay in their homes and keep their jobs at work. But sometimes we run into circumstances where you can't get that done. So, that's kind of my big three issues. I got to say, I've been knocking a lot of doors. People really respond when you tell them that you care about rents because they don't hear that from a lot of politicians, Yeah.
So I guess tell us a little bit about your your thoughts on being electable. I think you see a lot of folks running that are long time politicians, or like they come from kind of the inside tracks. Tell us a little bit about why you think you'd be a good fit. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah. So for one, I do come from a kind of different background. I'm an engineer. I've got 15 years of experience in state and federal contracting. So I'm very familiar with the various programs and systems that our county interacts with on a regular basis. So ESSER funds for schools is part of the projects I work on in my current role. And I've worked with DOE and GSA and all kinds of federal entities on various programs to get incentives for local projects. So I think I have some relevant experience, in the kind of stuff that a county mayor has to do, interacting with state and federal agencies. But I think a big thing about electability in Knox County this election cycle, we have, I think, a unique opportunity, right? Our entire political system, I think you could say, is in turmoil from the national to the local scale. Lots going on. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. And I think that means we have an opportunity as a county that's traditionally red in our, leadership of the county, in a city that's usually a little more blue, although nonpartisan technically, in the leadership there. And we've got a lot of folks moving in from out of state. And even more than that, we have people who have been here for a really long time who are suffering, right? Workers, renters who are feeling the crunch as prices increase and their income's not increasing. And, a lot of people don't vote in the Knox County mayoral election. I think our turnout during the last county mayoral election was about 45%. So I think if we bring a message that energizes working people, renters, people who are facing troubles, there's a lot of people that are struggling. And I think if we go to them and say, look, the county government can do more for you. We are already spending your tax dollars to help developers build things. We should use those development dollars as an incentive, as a lure, as a stick even, to get our developers to do what we want them to do. So I don't think anybody else is bringing that message. I think I'm the only one that's putting renters right at the front, right? The two other Democratic candidates, fine folks. They have a lot of good opinions. We agree on a lot of stuff. For me, it really is about getting out there with the people who are the most vulnerable, who are facing this crisis, and telling them, hey, the government can do better, and I want to help it do better, right? And again, I think the county mayor is just the right position for what we need to change. And again, I've got so much experience in these government programs. I've negotiated dozens of multi-million-dollar contracts, or at least been part of the negotiations, multi-million-dollar projects. I've done on-the-ground supervision of construction, of photovoltaic panels, and all kinds of infrastructure upgrades. And that's the kind of stuff we need in our county. And I think that I have the right background and experience to make sure that we're doing those things right. And I'm a kind of younger guy. I'm high energy a lot of the time, and I really enjoy getting out there and hanging out with the folks. We've had a couple events at various restaurants around town. We had one at the Landing House. We had one at the Brickyard. We just had one at the Brickyard last Saturday, and at the end of the event was a metal show. So I hung around for a couple songs. Nice. And rocked out with the crowd. And actually, before I left, they gave me a round of cheers before I left, because we were having such a good time over there. So I think that's what it's going to take, right? Is getting in there with working class folks, letting them know that the county is already spending your money. Let's just change how we spend it. So I think that's the kind of energy we need to activate the 65% of people who don't vote, who think that local government doesn't have anything to offer them. I think if we reach and activate those people, that's going to put us over the top in the general election.
Makes sense. Yeah. There's a lot of people who don't vote. That's for sure. Well, you touched on this a little bit, and I know, this is a top of mind issue for a lot of folks, is our education system. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah. I wasn't the first one to say this. There was a county commission candidate who came up with this slogan first, but he says $60K for teacher pay. So I started looking into that. And if you look, I think there's 3 communities around Knoxville, Maryville, Oak Ridge. I probably got that detail wrong, but there's several communities around Knoxville that pay their teachers on average $62,000 to $65,000 a year. And I think the Knoxville average is around $52,000. Our starting salary is like $48,000 or something like that. And so when you have that situation where they can drive 30 minutes to Oak Ridge and get paid $20,000 more a year, we're going to lose our good teachers. Not to say that we don't have good teachers, but retention is important. Consistency is important. Having the same teacher in the same classroom for 5 to 10 years creates a community sense in the school where students have grown up through this teacher and they know the teacher, parents know the teacher, the administration knows the teacher. But to do that, you have to pay your teachers. Another concern I've heard is that our school staff, janitorial and other services, are also underpaid as well. I've heard that from a lot of teachers. I think at a minimum, we should be $60K for teacher pay and approach these surrounding counties in average. Knoxville, Knox County, one of the wealthier counties, wealthier cities, in the state, the handful of others larger, of course, but we're doing pretty well financially. I think our teachers deserve to be a part of that prosperity. So I definitely support that. Another issue with schools, health and safety is a big issue. So I'm an HVAC and controls engineer. I know that I haven't done a lot of work in Knox County schools, and I don't want to talk too much about the district and stuff like that. But other schools I've worked in Tennessee, and some places I've just visited as a citizen here in Knoxville, Knox County, I've seen HVAC systems that aren't up to modern standards. Improper ventilation, or that's really the big one. Is not enough outdoor air, or not enough filtration of the air that's coming in or that's being recirculated in the classrooms. And again, there are federal and state programs available to modernize these systems. I know we got a big round of ESSER funding for the county in January. I haven't heard much about what's happening with it yet. So that again is one of those things where I feel like with my project management experience, that's not the kind of thing that I would let slip. If we got a lot of money coming in, I want to make sure we get that allocated, get that spent, get those projects going, because that puts people to work, that improves the environment for our school children. Again, no brainers. Somebody needs to be on top of this and paying attention to those things.
That is for sure. Well, we got about, just a couple minutes left, and you kind of touched on another subject I wanted to get to, which is health. Obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic still, and we've had a lot of controversy around our Board of Health here in the county. So I was just curious to get your thoughts on that and how you would kind of reevaluate that going forward. Sure.
So two points on that. First, the county furloughed workers early in the pandemic, which again hurt a lot of our services, and that was workers who weren't getting paid or were told to go on unemployment. So I think that was a mishandling of the COVID situation. And the Board of Health, especially trying to dissolve your Board of Health in the middle of a pandemic. That's the mayor. Now let me set this straight. I am not a medical professional, and as mayor, I will not act like a medical professional. I will follow the guidance of our medical professionals. I think, the CDC is an imperfect organization, right? There's controversy in their history and people have reasonable fears about vaccines, but they are our best source. And I think that they make a reasonable standard for our minimum. So I during the pandemic, I've always tried to follow CDC guidelines personally. I'm not a big fan of mandates and making people do things, but I do think that a business has every right to ask you to wear a mask for the health and safety of their employees. And I certainly, when I go in a store and I see the employees are wearing masks, even if the customers aren't, I wear my mask because solidarity. Another thing is our county general fund is increased by about 10%. So the general fund's kind of the discretionary portion of the budget. It's increased by about 10%, but our budget for public health and safety has not increased at all under the current administration. 0% increase in our budget for public health and safety during a pandemic. So, and that includes other programs, that includes CAC and the Board of Health and a bunch of stuff in that public health and safety. But it just shows that, again, our priorities are not in the right place.
Well, Tyler, I think we're about out of time. Do you want to give folks a quick pitch on where they can find you online, and if you have where they can find more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So my name is Tyler Givens. I'm running for Knox County Mayor. I'm supposed to say that again at the end, I think. And please check out tylerforknox.com. That's tylerforknox.com. It's got a lot of info about my policies. We just put the League of Women Voters meet and greet right at the top of our main page. So if you want to go watch a 40-minute candidate Q&A session with the current Democratic candidates, it's right there on the front page. Good stuff in there. Bob's on there. I know you talked with him just a little bit earlier, and Debbie's on there as well. And like I said, we got a good slate of candidates here. I hope you'll pay attention, tune in, see who the candidates are, and vote for whoever you think is best.
Sounds great. Well, thanks, Tyler. And that primary is coming up on May 3rd, so everyone be sure to.
That's right. May 3rd. Early voting starts April 13th, and early voting is super easy. The Election Commission released the list of all the locations. I think there's like 8 or 10 locations now. They're open from 8 to 6 most days, longer on weekends. Early voting, super easy. Get out there, vote in your Democratic primary.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of DTV, and we'll catch you next Friday.